Hello, brothers and sisters. God bless. Hope your night or day is going good. Everything's going well with you. I'm going to talk about a different topic than what I've been talking about recently. I've talked about this before. It can be a thing that can be difficult at first to wrap your mind around. I'm going to try to explain this the easiest way that I can. But once you understand this, you'll be able to show atheists and agnostics the futility of their worldview. I had a discussion with someone who labeled themselves agnostic about a week ago on Discord, and there were some fellow brothers and sisters in the room. And the agnostic that I was speaking to conceded that you do need context to be able to interpret facts. For facts to have intelligibility, for them to mean anything, you have to have context. So I'm going to try to explain this as easy as I can. And as I explain this, I'm going to use the word facts a lot. Now, the word facts is going to be a token word for all things that exist. So when I reference a fact or facts, what I'm referencing is something in existence when I say the word fact, or if I say facts, I'm referencing all things that exist. So what I will demonstrate in this video is that when it comes to all things that exist, when it comes to facts, unbelievers have no truth value. They have no interpretation for dependent facts, because facts require context. Now, people that read the Bible fluently know this, that you need context to be able to interpret facts properly. Without proper context, you misinterpret facts. This happens a lot with the book of Hebrews. If people don't consider the context, they get the facts wrong and they get the interpretation of the scriptures wrong. So when it comes to the nature of reality, if a person does not have ultimate context for all the dependent facts, then they cannot provide a proper interpretation to the nature of reality. Because we see in the scripture that Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes unto the Father except through me. And my contention is just as Jesus says no one can come to the Father except through him, he also says he's the truth. And without Jesus, you can have no truth. You can't have truth value for one single fact. Because Jesus is not only the supreme creator of all facts, but he is also the supreme interpreter of all facts. They are interpreted in respect to the model of reality that he created. You consider the verse in the Gospel of John, it says, all things were made through him and for him, and without him nothing was made that was made. So it says, all things were made through him and for him, and without him nothing was made that was made. So Jesus Christ is the supreme creator and the origin point for all dependent facts. He is the ultimate context for all dependent facts. And he provides interpretation to what those facts mean. And if you don't have an ultimate context, God, who gives enlightenment to all facts, then you will have no interpretation or meaning to the facts in reality, only an idolatrous conceptualization that facts can mean something independent from God. See, Jesus in his ministry said, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. Jesus says, I am the light of the world, and this is a reference to enlightenment. I am the enlightenment of the world. Because remember, one, he's the creator of all facts, but he's also the supreme interpreter of all facts. Facts only mean something in respect to the model of reality he's created. And he says, the one who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. In other words, they will have enlightenment to the true nature of reality and the facts in it. The non-acceptance of God's self-disclosure leads to darkness, and that's why Jesus says, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. In other words, the one who's not following Jesus is walking in darkness. Darkness is a reference to not knowing what anything is. It's to say that the one who is not following Jesus has no interpretation to the nature of reality and what things mean in respect to an ultimate context. This is where I usually clarify a point, because sometimes people will say, well, don't you believe an orange the same way that an atheist believes in an orange, and don't you have the same fact that they have? And the answer is no. We have a completely alternative interpretation to that fact, because I call that a God-created fact. That's a Jesus-created fact when I look at an orange. Now, an unbeliever will interpret that as an entirely different fact. They will say it's not a created thing from God. It's not from Jesus Christ. And that is a completely different interpretation, an alternative interpretation than the one I would provide to the orange. The problem with an unbeliever is when they have not accepted the self-disclosure of God as the ultimate context for dependent facts, they will have no identifiable origin point or context to be able to place and interpret facts. In other words, because they have no identifiable ultimate origin point for dependent facts, all their facts go into a dark void that doesn't ultimately speak to what the nature of reality actually is. And so while I can have a semantic apprehension of facts with an unbeliever on a surface level, when we dig into context to be able to interpret that fact, we will have an alternative and completely different interpretation than one another. But only with a revelatory ultimate context can one know the true nature of reality, and that's what Jesus is. He's the revelatory ultimate context. I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. They will have enlightenment to the true nature of reality and the facts in it. When Jesus gives us the gift of faith, he not only saves our soul from damnation, but he saves our intellect from incoherence. I'll give a short example of why context is necessary for interpretation of facts. And without context, you will have a misinterpretation of facts. So imagine I walk up to a police officer and I say, I just saw this murder happen. And this guy with a blue shirt got into a green car. He threw this gun into a ditch, and then he turned off onto a main highway. Now, as this officer starts asking me more questions to try to get context of what happened, I give him the self-disclosure that I was actually watching an episode of Perry Mason, where there was a murder. The guy got in a car, he threw a gun in a ditch, and then he pulled off onto a main highway. All those facts that he thought were facts will be completely reinterpreted in respect to the shorthanded context that I gave him. This example is not speaking of ultimate context as far as ultimate reality, but this gives an example. To even begin to interpret facts, we need context. And so when it comes to the ultimate nature of reality and the facts in it, to interpret those facts, we're going to need ultimate context. Jesus is the ultimate revelatory light and ultimate context that the non-acceptance of his self-disclosure leads to darkness, to not knowing what the true nature of reality is, and not having any truth value for anything that exists. The situation for unbelievers is that there is a light that has been turned off to a fact dependency chain that leads to an ultimate context that would provide interpretation for all the dependent facts in reality. Those facts are completely mute and say nothing to what the nature of reality actually is, being that from their worldview they derive from a dark void that is unidentifiable. In other words, from an unbeliever standpoint, there is no place to place and interpret facts in terms of a context to tell us what the true nature of reality is for one single thing that exists. Now, the Bible, the Word of God, delivers to us what is the ultimate context for all dependent facts. So when you're dealing with an unbeliever and they tell you that you believe in a fairy tale, and I've had this happen multiple times throughout life, that people tell you you believe in a fairy tale, that what you believe is actually BS. Consider the person making the claim. If you take their assertions and propositions in their mind and you codify them in a written script and place them on a paper and bind them under a book cover, what makes that book true to the nature of reality? What makes that book not BS? Because the Bible is a collection of propositions and assertions, and that's what a person is operating from. If they're not operating from God's mind and his book, they're operating from the book of their own mind. And if a person doesn't accept the Bible to be true, the book of the Bible, then why should we accept the book of their mind to be true? So while I can have an agreement on semantic apprehension of facts with an unbeliever, when we begin to unpack those facts to know the true nature of reality, dependent upon an ultimate context, there will be no agreeable interpretation. And from a standpoint of an unbeliever, without an ultimate revelatory context, that is the origin point for all dependent facts, they will have no ability to interpret facts in any logical, meaningful way. Any fact that is referenced without God is nothing more than an idolatrous conceptualization that a person can have truth, value, and meaning for a fact independent from God and his mind and his creation. So as believers, God has given us gifts that we don't even know of half the time. He's given us so many things. He's given us righteousness, sanctification, redemption, and wisdom. He's also given us truth value for all facts that exist, he being the creator and interpreter of all facts. Because we are his sheep, we have the light of life. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. We know the true nature of reality that we could not know independent from an ultimate revelatory context. There's more examples and things I can give on this, and I probably am going to leave this explanation short and then maybe make following videos depending upon if people seem to be understanding this and also seem to be interested. When you begin to understand this, you realize there's no place to go except Jesus Christ for truth. That to even have intelligibility for the orange on my table, for it to mean anything, for me to have interpretation for that fact in respect to the nature of reality, Jesus Christ, the God of the Bible, would have to exist as the ultimate creator, sustainer, institutor, and supreme interpreter of all the dependent facts that he has created, being the ultimate revelatory light and ultimate context that tells us what the true nature of reality actually is. And independent from God, independent from Jesus Christ, you are in complete and utter darkness. And you will have no truth value for anything. So God bless you, peace to you, take care, and I hope your night or day is going good.